Good evening and welcome back to a brand new episode of Around the Pit. This is episode 4 of the brand new esports series where we get together, talk about all the things that we love about Dota 2, as well as give out points, well, because I feel like doing it. My name is Toffees as always. You can find me at Toffees_Dota 2, and a big shout out to the guys at Razer for sending us all the equipment we need to run this show. Now I am joined by some guests here. I'll introduce them before I explain the rules of the game to you. Starting out from left to right, our first guest is going to be a gentleman who you probably have heard of, and if you haven't, you may know him from writing for a couple of different magazines. He is well known, especially for his time at Gozu, Dota Blast. Where else have you worked, Skim?
Actually, that's pretty much it. D2CL short stint, Sigma short stint, and now I'm working with Dota Buff.
Awesome. So you're officially with Dota Buff now? Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, congratulations on that. It is. I'm glad to see that you finally settled down somewhere, and we'll continue to get me my free Dota Buff premium memberships from here on out. So I think that's an important part of you getting that job. So you can find him over at Skim Gaming when you need to find him, and he's got some good information as well as does a ton of analysis for the scene, and I encourage you to look him up. Our second guest today is going to be Conrad Jansen. His Twitter name is QuantumPope, but you probably haven't actually heard that Twitter name as he doesn't use it very often. So Conrad used to be the manager for C9, now in a really lazy Gerg-like status. We don't know
that's probably the most accurate.
Are you willing to give us your future plans? I see you're fronting a Twitch shirt. Does that mean you're going to go work for them?
I mean, I'm wearing an ESL hoodies. I mean, I'm going to work for them too. Like,
pretty much, you can dream, right?
No, I can't really talk about my future plans. You'll see soon. But thank you very much for having me on the show. Can't wait to have some top-notch banter. Awesome.
Excited about hearing your plans when it does come out, and banter we will have aplenty. Our final guest tonight is Ryan Gerardo. You know him as the Wonder Cow. May used to know him as Gorgon the Wonder Cow once upon a time. How you doing?
First time anybody in esports has ever used my real name, and it's super weird.
It is super weird. So, you might know Gorgon. He writes for Join Dota. Actually, he writes for pretty much every website that will publish his stuff. He does a lot of stat assessment, a lot of patch notes, has a couple of different articles that are, I want to say columns that are very, very good for those of you who are addicted to the game of Dota. He is also my partner in crime in the upcoming season of CSL, the Collegiate Star League. Little self-plug there. You can check us out. I think we're going to do twice a week, casting some of the top college teams in America. So that'll be a lot of fun starting next month. So make sure you check us out there. All right, guys. Fun show for you tonight. It's going to be short, simple, and pretty easy to follow. If you haven't seen the show before, the rules are simple. Each topic gets 8 to 11 minutes, 8 at the minimum, or, well, anything at the minimum, 11 at the max, just like the Roche timer. Basically, I've got a buzzer that I will ring when the topic is dead, and the one rule that I have for this show is respect the buzzer. When it goes off, you are done talking completely. I will also be handling out points during the show. They could be arbitrary, they could be meaningful. If you make a good point, if you make me laugh, or if you inspire the crowd, you get yourself a point. The winner with the most points at the end of the show gets 2 things. A soapbox, where they're allowed 1 minute to talk about anything that they want. And second, they get invited back next week if they'd like to. So really, they get an Aegis they can use anytime to respawn in around the pit. You may notice that LD is not here this week. This is an example of him choosing to keep his Aegis in his pocket, as he's been pretty busy around the ESL and getting some Summit stuff ready, and chose to take this week off. So thanks to all the guys who jumped in and are looking to win their own Aegis, as it looks like it's going to be a pretty good show. Now, the last rule you need to understand is at any point during the show, any of our guests can demand a soapbox. What that means is they get 1 minute to talk about anything that they want, preferably about the topic that we just covered, but I will not regulate you. And they can talk without interruption from the other guests, pretty much unmolested. So that's it. Do you guys have any questions about the rules before we get started?
Wait, is there molesting in this show? Or?
Oh, just a little bit. And it's nice.
I did the wrong type of preparation.
The wrong prep,
but
yes.
I came properly prepped in that I'm not wearing pants.
Well, there you go. All right, so this just in.
Quick question. If
Yes.
I hero power, does that count as an inspire, or?
Hero power? I don't know.
You
Yes.
can only do that once.
That's a deep joke, bro.
That is a Hearthstone.
That was super heavy.
So, 1 minus point for Steve.
Yeah, no, we're gonna start with we're starting in the negatives. You asked for it, you're getting it. So here we go. We're gonna start out with just docking you points. And while we do that, let's get into the first topic. at hand, and that is going to be EG's performance or lack thereof. Guys, we just saw ESL. EG got knocked out in the first round of the LAN. They were a direct invite, so we did not see them in qualifiers. What the heck happened?
I mean,
This is not an uncommon thing, right? I don't think anybody here will argue that teams win TI and then typically go on to win everything after TI. That basically never happens. It has not ever happened so far. So the idea that they came out a little rusty and got knocked out early, it's not all that surprising. What's surprising is maybe they got knocked out without winning a game, that they got knocked out in the first bracket. Maybe that's surprising. But the fact that they didn't win ESL itself or came out playing lower than expected standards, there's absolutely no, that is historically, you would put money on that every single time. It happens every single year.
but I mean, would you not say that Evil Geniuses was the most strong team coming out of the international, all the reshuffling and everything? Who would you rate as the number one team?
I would still rate EG the number one team.
See, and that's like the devil's advocate
right.
I want to play here. I do agree with you completely. Like, I think there's definitely a subpar performance from the guys.
Yeah.
I mean, Samael only returned from Pakistan about a week ago, so I know that they probably haven't been practicing, and I know they were waiting for the patch, which was very recently. So I don't know if that's like a practice issue or maybe a possible patch, just adapting to the patch. But we'll see how it ends up going for the rest of them. Right now, I mean, obviously, I think that was. I don't think anybody's happy with that performance on that team. They should.
At the same time, though, they were facing Vega, which happened to be the tournament winner, right? Who knows what EG would have looked like if they had, say, a seemingly easier team to face up against in the first round to sort of like build them up again. I mean, yes, I think it was to be expected that their first performance is not going to be as strong as you kind of want them to be. But at the same time, if they had faced an opponent which may not have given them such a really, such a fight like Vega did, maybe they could have built them up themselves easier in terms of, hey, we can actually get this game, and then they win a game and suddenly things are completely different, right?
So for me, the important point with EG in this tournament is that it's not that they didn't come out swinging hard or that they came out below what their ranking would imply. But it's that they made an unprecedented roster move that implied that they were planning on coming out swinging hard, harder than any other TI winner has ever done. No premier tournament winner, not just TI, any premier tournament in history of Dota has ever then dropped a player within a week of winning, swapped players, and decided to move forward from there. So
wait, what about Newbie? I'm pretty sure they lost Zhao 8 immediately after TI.
They didn't drop him, though.
Yeah, I mean, that was a retirement.
Okay.
I mean, looking at the situation, I don't think. I mean, Fear played fine. I think everybody played fine. They just didn't play well as a team.
Yeah,
and like I said, I don't know if that's like a synergy issue. Or,
Well, and let me pose this follow-up question then. You mentioned, Conrad, and I gave you points for this, that you said that they were waiting for the patch to come out to maybe get serious about practicing. And again, this is probably speculation. We don't know for sure if that's what happened. But do you think that a lack of practice maybe hurt synergy, and the lack of, say, team preparedness together is what caused this issue?
I mean, I don't know. I think it's more actually underestimating Vega. I think a lot of teams underestimated Vega in this situation. That's fair. Vega, I think they came out really strong. I mean, they've been playing decently in most qualifiers. They actually haven't qualified for anything except for ESL, which is kind of an interesting situation. They went 3-2 against 5 Jungs in Nanyang, I believe. But other than that, like, it's just these teams right now, everybody seems potential, but I don't think there's any standout teams like we had last year with Secret, EG, even Cloud9. Like, those teams, I felt like they were on a whole other level compared to these other quote-unquote tier 2 teams. But right now, every team seems pretty easy, even across the board.
Yeah, so put that in historical perspective. If you rank teams based on ELO, which is the way that chess players are ranked, right? This time last year, at ESL 1 last year, EG, Vici Gaming, and Secret had been swapping number 1 for weeks, and they continued to swap number 1 until December, where Secret started to fall off because they had the roster change with the loss of Misery and No Tail, and they picked up Zion Arteezy. Then they kind of faded down, and then it was EG Vici until Secret found their stride again in about February. This time, this year, in Europe, you have 5 Youngs, Vega, and you have
Monkey
Business. Thank you. All trading equally against each other, but they are trading series equally against
Okay, wait. Are we really saying that Monkey Business is trading serious equally with other teams?
They have.
I mean, they qualified for a LAN.
They have been literally. They have traded equally with 5junks and Vega. Mathematically,
No stats here, but I know they qualified for a LAN.
So. I think all of those teams listed, and I like I said, I don't have it pulled up, but I think most of them qualified for one LAN apiece.
All of them qualified for exactly one. There's 3, and they each took one.
Yeah, Monkey Business, Vega, 5junks all took a LAN. In North America, almost ended up being the same thing, but ended up C9 actually taking 2, and then Fire taking the other.
But
I would say the
C9
third team
wasn't active when Fire took that one. That's an important point. And Monkey Business wasn't active when Vega took ESL 1. And Monkey Business ran rampant over Vega.
Wait, you're talking? No, C9 was active for ESL.
Were they?
Yeah, they were in that. They were in that qualifier for sure. They lost to DC.
Oh, you know,
after they beat them in
in the first round, I think.
All right, so
we're gonna one of those for mirrors that they were not active.
That's 2 points down for Gorgon, and we're gonna give a point to Skim there for quality correction. Well done.
That was me, bro.
Oh, I'm sorry, not Skim. I meant Conrad. I wish you guys have the same haircut, so it's your fault.
Two skims.
All right. So that said, EG. Let's get back on this EG sort of topic. Some of you have said underestimated Vega. Some sounds like unprepared. What do you think is the single common denominator? Can we put our finger on something that is the biggest contributor to them not advancing? I've heard people say they didn't even care about this tournament. I've heard people say they're just focused on majors.
I mean, the biggest thing right now is we don't know. I mean, that's only for EG to know. We can speculate. I think my speculation is I don't think there was enough preparation coming into this tournament. I think if they were really serious about this one, they would have done a lot more research on teams, and there was a lot of footage on all these teams, like minus I think Secret, I guess. And I'd say you can research any of them, and if anybody, the Secret and EG guys probably talk the most. So I don't know. In this situation, I would definitely say I think they should have just prepared more, and if they put a little bit more time, maybe training together. Obviously, like I said, Samael was gone for a long time. That just you don't get to scrim as much, and that's just the problem you have to deal with.
It's fair. And if there's a better time to take a vacation, I guess TI is really the best time to go, right? Travel away from your internet potential. So definitely a good point. Anybody last thoughts on this topic before we move on to the next one? I
will say, just to break a lance for EG, it did seem like PPD did do his homework, at least for Vega, in terms of like scouting them. Mm-hmm. Like the way he talked on the panel, you could see that he was definitely prepared to see how he would draft and play against them. Like he knew what they were going to go for or what they weren't going to do. It is obviously they weren't like practiced in terms of like being together as a team. That was obvious that they didn't work together at all, or not as they would hope for. But
people were giving them a lot of flack for not banning the Broodmother and banning the IO instead. But anybody who gave them flack for banning the IO instead doesn't know Vega's drafting procedure. IO is the most banned hero against them at this point now. It's their most heavily prioritized pick in terms of opportunity picks. They started picking it after Monkey Business had huge success with IO Tiny at the end of last patch and brought it in. It's banned in 100% of games that they play against Monkey Business. It's banned in almost 100% of games against 5junks. And 5junks almost lost that game because they didn't ban IO. So,
quick thing. Can I get a point for being the only one that can actually pronounce 5junks? Just putting it out there.
Sorry, I think there's a German bias here.
So I'm going to go ahead and take away a point for begging for points, and that's the end of the topic. It's fine. You can throw it out there. I can just snap it down.
He can have one of my points.
See, here's the thing. If you corrected him without begging for the point, I think you would have gotten the point.
Totally. You would have got, yes, that is absolutely true. All right, so that's it for that topic. Let's move on to the next one. And now here's what we're going to talk about. A lot of people have voiced opinions over the last couple of, I'd say not a couple months, maybe the last couple of weeks, maybe the last month or so, that Secret wasn't as strong. This roster's not as strong as the old Secret, and to the point where they didn't even deserve to get the amount of direct invites to LANs that they've gotten, because they've pretty much been invited to every LAN directly instead of having to earn their way through qualifiers. After today and after yesterday, do you think that there is any question to them being one of the strongest teams in the world at the moment?
I mean, for me... Oh, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
For me personally, I actually think they always should have been invited. I think they're a strong brand within Dota, specifically Puppy, who was the remaining player on that team. And just the people that were brought on are really good players. Like, I have. I mean, 2 of them used to play on the team that I managed, so maybe some 3 of them. Sorry, I mean maybe some bias, but like I really enjoy the way they play, and I think all those players are really strong, and the Secret brand is important for. Like, it brings viewers. That's how it works. It brings viewers, and if you want viewers, you're gonna invite Secret.
So, with the exception of World Cyber Arena, that made basically everybody qualify. I don't think they had any direct invites, right? Everybody directly invited Secret, but it's not that weird that they would. Like Conrad said, it's Puppy plus 3 from Cloud9, all 5 great players. They are like Cloud9. If it were still together, European Cloud9 probably would have been directly invited to those events, barring a Secret anyway. So, and Secret would have been invited to those events, barring a Secret anyway. It makes marketing sense to be, especially for ESL1, to be the first tournament with a main stage for the new Secret roster. There's no way they don't want that. And since Gamers Paradise turned out to be complete shill, right? ESL1 got a huge bonus to their entire tournament. Every viewer that went in for those Secret games went in because it was their first major exposure to this new Secret lineup, and they wanted to see if they deserved it. That little bit of controversy they stirred up, I'm sure, did wonders for their overall viewership. So it's a good business decision, whether or not it's a right decision.
I mean, I completely agree. Of course, from an organizer's point of view, inviting Secret is really good because of what Conrad said. Like, you do want those brand names like Puppy, like Eternal Envy, that has this huge following. You want them at your event so that you can get those views, right? Not only online, but especially on site. But I think from a fan perspective or just from a viewer perspective, I think after TI, after the shuffle, just if you discuss about it, or if you think about it, like what makes sense, like in terms of you'll never know how strong a team can be after the shuffle, right? You'll never know. What we do know is how strong or what certain level of play you can expect from certain teams that didn't change their roster at all. Like VP, like Vega, for example. Vega was at TI, was a wildcard qualifier at TI. Technically, if you were just about to say Vega had 5 players that were super popular themselves, or in general just popular themselves, that invite goes to Vega no matter what. Even despite their strong performance right now, that invite goes to Vega. But just because they weren't as popular, they didn't get the invite. So in that sense, I can definitely understand why some people were kind of arguing about the direct invite over Secret. But I can't blame ESL or any other tournament organizer for that matter to invite Secret after the shuffle just because of the names and the brand that brings.
I mean, I honestly think the skill was there regardless. Like, I mean, unless you do another qualifier or you invite the second team. But then, see, here's the thing. It's also a part about appeasing players, right? These are the type of players that are the most vocal on Twitter. They're the most vocal in general. And they're going to be like, why weren't we invited? I'm clearly a tier 1 player. I'm on a tier 1 team. Only one player on that team is like considered maybe like an unknown factor. So it's just an interesting aspect where I don't know if I would have just invited them. Like I said, for reasons, but I also think there's a skill set there that they could have proven themselves.
So let me spin off of that and say, do you think that players' social media presence or a team's social media presence does contribute to their invite rate to these tournaments?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah,
of course.
Sure. Yeah.
Why wouldn't it? Hey, fans want to see their most popular teams, right? Tournaments want to invite the most popular teams. Players want to be the most popular players and be on the most popular teams because they get those invites. That is a big part. Like, the players that get invited to events outside of normal league play in the NFL or in any other sort of organization are also the most visible, the most beloved players. That's just the way it is. And since we don't have an overarching league like those other games do, everything is going to have that influence with regards to how players are going to be invited.
Now, to be honest here, I think tournaments would honestly do open qualifiers if it wasn't a huge resource drain to run them, Like, people complain that there's already a lot of oversaturation. You want to create invites to reduce the amount of teams that have to go through these qualifiers. And it's a part appeasing the players, and it's part like a logistical issue. There's a lot of money that goes into those qualifiers that people running a studio isn't free. And that's what people forget.
There's also the added fact that it's good for teams to not constantly be playing qualifiers, and it's good for fans to not see the same matchup between these two teams over and over and over again in 9 tournaments through 9 different qualifier processes just to get to the main stage when they're probably going to make it there anyway.
And let's not Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And let's not forget, if you announce a tournament, say ESL One Frankfurt, for example, it is much better to market it with teams that you've already invited. I mean, the major in Frankfurt right now, it has not been sold out yet. You'd expect that the first major in Europe would be immediately sold out, right? But it wasn't. And I've been lurking on Reddit, I've been talking to friends, and most of them said, well, I don't even know what teams are attending. Why should I buy a ticket already if I don't even know what teams I can expect to see there, right? And if you market an event with, say, oh, we have EG coming in, we have Team Secret, people are going to be all over it. Oh, yeah, I want to be Puppy on LAN, I want to buy my ticket already. That's why each year ESL in Frankfurt is a huge hit, just because they always announce these invites very early on. And then they say, hey, you can meet EG here. Do you remember the poster with like Universe and Ake? That's just really good advertising. And then people are going to... That's true. And then people will definitely just buy the tickets, book all that stuff in advance, and just make sure that they appear on LAN. If you don't do it like the Frankfurt Major right now, well, you're not going to sell out.
Right.
I mean, to speak to the major, though, I think a lot of people are waiting for tomorrow's announcements. And once those go through, I think there's not going to be a problem.
No, for sure.
Well, we'll see. Who knows? Maybe I'm completely wrong. And
wait. So you know announcements are tomorrow? Is that confirmed, Conrad?
Yeah. It was on the blog post.
Yeah, it was on the blog post. It's on the 5th.
Excellent.
That's all I got. That's all the info I get. I don't get any secret Valve emails anymore, so don't worry.
When the blog post come out? Anyway,
like 9 days ago. Something.
Man, I gotta read better.
It's like like strung in there somewhere. Don't worry about it.
Awesome. Well, you know what? We're gonna end the topic there because we've hit our 8-minute mark. And I should hit the buzzer just obligatorily very quickly. I will say this as we transition to the next one, though. For those of you who are curious, we know it's on the 5th. We don't know exactly what time it's going to be, but I have hired a babysitter to take care of the kid, and the second that the announcements go live, we will be live on this channel to do just like we did last time for TI, announcement coverage. So come in if you are a personality, if you've got insights on the scene. It's going to be a stop by and chat sort of deal. So gentlemen, of course, you are welcome, as is anybody else. So check this out tomorrow when the invites go live. As soon as I see them, I will be going live as well. So if you see it and I'm not live, tweet me. Let me know.
Sweet.
All right, let's jump to the next topic. You guys sort of brought it up, so I want to get into this. And it was the idea, you talked about having teams to promote sales of tickets, right? And this brings us to something that sort of was all over the place yesterday, and that was a leak that came out. I believe it was published on eFrag. And it was the leak of the letter from Navi's head to the organizers, listing a couple of other teams on there. Let me pull it up so that we can talk about those teams very, very quickly here. I want to make sure that we cover all of it. Here we go. So eFrag, it listed Navi, Team Liquid, CLG, Cloud9, Virtus Pro, Team Solo Mid, Fnatic, Ninjas in Pajamas, Titan, and Envious. And basically said a lot of stuff and said basically these are the demands that we're going to have going forward. Now, first to clarify before we start talking, this is not a union, and I think that you guys probably will talk a little bit about that. But this letter, the leak, all of that, what do you think? I know it's a topic that's on everybody's tongues. Let's get into it.
Okay, before I start this off, everything we're saying right now is pure speculation, right? Mm-hmm. Because none of us, I just assume that Conrad hasn't talked to anybody about this, or like, I don't know.
I'll do a clarification as well.
Sure.
This was never mentioned at any time when I was employed by Cloud9, so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's also just something I have no knowledge of, so I can't provide any additional insight other than my own speculation.
Other than speculation.
Yes.
All right, so now before we start, everybody, this is pure speculation. None of us know any more than you do, but because we love the scene, we're going to talk about it anyway. What do you think?
Well, personally, I think this is a much bigger deal to CSGO. I just want to get this out of the way right now, just so that I'm not sure if everybody here knows, but if you look at these teams, these organizations represent the top teams in CSGO right now. The top teams from Europe and the top teams from NA. And considering that there's no Chinese or Asian scene aside from, I guess, like Australia a bit, this is a huge deal for them. But of course, this is just to put it into perspective. For Dota, I think it is to some degree reasonable, to be honest, like travel support stuff, for example. I think it is reasonable to demand these kind of things just because there's been so many tournaments that have not followed through with this or have promised payments, but in the end they were like they fell short in terms of like money. For example, D2L, I don't want to call them out, but Vici Gaming and LGD have both claimed that D2L have not paid the appropriate amount of travel support that they expected or that they kind of like promised. I don't know which it was, but just having this kind of clarification does help out in these cases. But, and you have read the article as well, I know that, Toffees, but it should be said that when there's a team union, and even though it is not an official union, but since this is a sort of like association with like team organizers, there needs to be the same thing for the players, because the players need to be able to advocate for themselves as well.
So this is the big thing that I'm going to say on this, and then I'll let you go, Conrad. This is not a union. This is just collective bargaining of organizations that have similar points of view, and they are bargaining with an outlet for a product that they are trying to do. This is really not very different. And if all these organizations were to go to American Airlines and try to bargain for their tickets in group, this is not a union. A union represents players. It's not even resembling a union. It's just collective bargaining from organizations.
If anything, it's a business agreement. That's
right.
The way
That's all it is.
It's just a bunch of guys agreeing to do the same thing. Boom.
Right.
Okay.
And none of the demands that they made seemed unreasonable to me. I mean, I'm looking through the list of demands. They're asking for a bed per player, which doesn't always happen. Asking for transportation to the event, prize money to be paid within 3 months. They want no more than 8 hours of gameplay per day. With delays and stuff, we're talking no more than 12 to 14 hours of a work day. These are not unreasonable things for organizations to want for their players. And they're literally looking at things like, oh, we need our players to be able to use the restroom without having to go through throngs of fans. We need our players to not have leaky pipes falling over them like at the Gfinity Masters, right? We need our players to, once again, Gfinity Masters, we need our players to have actual space for their keyboard and mouse. Nothing here seems completely unreasonable, but it's worth pointing out that this agreement that they're putting out has nothing to do with defending the players. It's not a players' union. Players could go in and unionize if they feel like they need to, and more power to them if they want that, but that's not the purpose of this. This agreement is not for defending the players from their own organizations, for organizations to bargain for the various aspects of agreements that they want with other organizations.
I will say, when I saw the list of demands, I got a little bit worried because the first thing that popped in my head was the Summit 4 and the fact there's only 2 bathrooms in that entire house. And I really don't want to. I just don't want to wait for Syndra to finish using the toilet before I have to go to the bathroom.
I'll speak to this just from like more of a logistical issue because that's sort of where my expertise is. I don't think a lot of these demands are out of control.
No, not at all.
There are some things that are definitely interesting. I definitely think if there should be 3 rooms with 2 beds in each, that's fair. But like certain things, specifically the one that really kind of popped out to me was this media report by teams. I'll tell you for a fact, no team is going to do this media report, not that I've seen previously. So unless they're planning to change a lot of different things, like this is something that the teams are supposed to provide, and I don't know if they're actually going to be providing anything like similar to that.
The teams are supposed to provide it, and it's supposed to be provided back to the teams. Right. There's a two-way street there. I think that's a really good thing to put in writing because, like you said, it's not happening right now.
No, and I don't think it will happen. I'm just gonna throw that one out there, just knowing how organizations work, from both the tournament side and the being on the player side as well. And a couple things that I actually have gripes with this is it's a lot of saving money for the teams. Yes, I'm all about getting travel support, and I think it's really important. But it's crazy how suddenly the team, what do the teams have to pay now? You know, they're getting all this sponsorship, they're getting all this stuff, and they're providing. Hopefully, here's the better way of putting it: are players going to get more salary because tournament organizers are doing all the travel support now?
That's something for a players' union to figure out, right? That's not something. That's not the point of this organization.
This is the problem. Literally, these people's jobs are to be business people. Players' jobs aren't business people. So unless you have somebody who's really business savvy or really smart, and what about these tier 2 teams? If anything, like tier 2 teams are just going to get shit on in these situations. Yeah. They get the same credits as these guys. Oh, sorry, you guys aren't in the union. Deal with it. Like, there's no defense for these sort of people as well. This is actually something that that's what bothers me about a lot of these union talks that we've had in Dota 2 and other things, is that a tier 2 player has no voice in this. If it's supposed to represent the entire scene of players or entire scene of organizers, where's the tier 2? Sorry. Also, yes, just to clarify, Skim, this is a completely CSGO based one, just based on those teams.
Also, well, let me, I know I'm not in the argument, I'm just the host, but I do want to throw this out there as somebody who's worked in the entertainment industry all my life, right? Now, when you're an actor, you join something called the Screen Actors Guild. You do not get to join the SAG until you are an established actor with I'm not going to say what the set is, but a lot of hours that establish you as an actor who gets paid to act. So there is a whole tier 2 group of actors out there who work for peanuts and less representation, waiting for their chance to be members of SAG. Is that any different than a tier 2 player trying to make their way to a tier 1 organization?
Can I add on to that metaphor just by saying, as somebody who's worked in film production, just like there are tier 1 movies, quote unquote, that would get the Screen Actors Guild actors that are more expensive but have that brand name recognition that are going to bring people to your movie. There are lots and lots of movies that you've never heard of that are local movies, that are independent movies, that go to people who are not in the Screen Actors Guild because they can afford them. And so while this sort of organization does somewhat threaten the ability for a lower ranked player or team to kind of sweep up into where a bunch of higher ranked players and teams are without establishing themselves first, what it does do is it means that lower ranked teams are not going to be pushed out of smaller prize tournaments by higher ranked teams. And that by itself could be good.
I think that's a fair point.
To speak about this though, this is the sort of thing. Yes, your analogies are great, but they're also a little bit off. Former Directors Guild of Canada, somebody speaking here. So there's a reason why the SAG exists. It's so that they don't have people working on tier 2 films. SAG actors can only work on something, or they have to sign away certain things because there's a certain level of stuff. Now here's the thing: there are plenty of tier 2 films being made. Where's all these tier 2 tournaments to help make you can be not in SAG and have a completely affordable living. Where I don't think you can do that. As you know, just as an actor.
I don't know. As somebody who's been an actor not in SAG, I can tell you that I ate a lot of ramen noodles and peanut butter and jelly, which I think the tier 2 players are as well.
But I mean, I've seen guys. I dealt particularly with a lot of background actors, so it's like you can make a really good living just doing background acting. Yeah. Except that's not where you want to be, right? You want to be on that tier 1, and to get that tier 1 is just so hard. But there's all these tier 2 films you can work on, and there's just not any in Dota.
But film is bigger than esports is right now. As esports grow, this is the sort of thing that is inevitable that we need to kind of work through this stage where big teams are taking up in almost every tournament with a living prize pool. Big teams are taking those.
And to speak to all this as well, players right now, tier 2 players, they're not taking any tournaments. Let's just throw that out there. But there's also a reason that people aren't supporting amateur tournaments is because they're not bringing in the viewership. It's really hard to be a tier 2 player right now. And my biggest fear is that we're going to lose out on all these Ritsus, these crits, these unknown guys that if they didn't have an in-house league or if they didn't do well on MMR boost or MMR just
leaderboards.
Yeah, they weren't just good. If you weren't good, you're just gonna get.
Now we're almost out of time on this topic, so I do want to put this out there. Eggs brought it up over on Twitch. I think it's a good question. The one thing that kind of spoke to me about this wasn't even the fact that the players weren't mentioned, because there's probably a lot of background communication we're not getting. This was a leaked letter. Don't forget that. But are these standards being universal from game to game? Okay, or should they be set? Should these standards be different for each game? Because basically the letter said CS:GO and Dota 2 have the same standards. Is that reasonable?
There are a couple
different standards
in CS:GO.
They said a few different standards.
Yeah,
but the thing is, it not only should it be different for each game, but it should also be different for each organization already. Or rather, not in terms of only this organization gets this amount of money for travel support, but no, rather where teams participate or not. That's actually I found that really surprising, to be honest, that teams like Navi, for example, I mean, look at the Dota team. Can they really afford to skip out every tournament that's below 100K? Did they even consider this? Fnatic, for example, they're Southeast Asia. They have it even worse. There's no tournament in Southeast Asia that has 100K LAN unless it's a specific qualifier for a Western tournament, right?
And that's the big thing right now, is that we're looking at this from they're looking at this from a CS:GO perspective. Right now, it's the big game coming in. All these teams are CS:GO teams. Let's just be honest. And they're thinking about their CS:GO teams, where Navi's CS:GO team very strong, Fnatic's CS:GO team extremely strong. Envious, of course, they don't even have a Dota team. Same thing with Liquid. Former Dota team, but now they have
CLG.
CLG. Sorry, I thought you said there were top teams in this.
They're like, okay.
All right, that's all the time we have on that topic. We'll stop there. And before I jump to the next one, I do want to say I'm giving a free point to Skim for being the only person in the group who has apparently not worked in the film industry at some point in their career, as we have just found out. All right, so the next topic on the list, and this one, I don't know how long this is going to go, but I think that it was interesting, and I hope that you guys had a chance to read it. And it was the open letter to Dendy that was published on... well, I don't know where it was published, but it ended up on Reddit. It was on the top of the list all day. I thought it was pretty interesting. It was basically a fan saying, Dendy, I love you. I've cried over your career more times than I can remember. Basically the ultimate fan saying, you're in a place that just isn't utilizing you, that you don't deserve to be. You should be somewhere better. What did you guys think of the open letter? And what did you think of Dendy's response? He actually responded to the whole thing.
It read like a fan letter, just because it didn't have any sort of like insight towards the team. Like, how is a fan supposed to know what the team looks like, right? For all we know, Dendy is actually the anchor weighing them down. I'm not saying that, but you don't really know what the team dynamics are. You don't really know how the players attack with one another, and like who's shouldering what burden, right? Maybe Havos is shouldering a lot of responsibility by making calls in game, and that's his game sort of like weakens just because he has to be their captain or whatever. So I think it's really, I think Dandy handled it in a classy way by just basically not addressing that part at all. And he just said, yeah, I want to improve. I want to be better, and hopefully we can come back and whatnot. But it was basically really offensive towards Dandy and his team. And they actually did an interview with Dandy at TI5, and he basically told me the same thing, that a lot of fans just don't see what's happening don't know what's happening behind the scenes, and they just jump to conclusions and have some sort of weird assumptions that he's bad and he has to be just a feeder and he's weighing them down,
that's like the unfortunate part about sports and just esports as well. Like, everybody feels like they know what's going on unless you have like a specific contact within that team where they're willing to reveal certain information publicly. Like, we're never going to know. Even we have to speculate, even no matter how ingrained you are in the scene. In terms of the open letter, like I said, yeah, you're right on the point there, Skim. It's just like, it was a fan letter, and I'm happy to see that there are people that are this passionate about teams, even if they're not like the best. Like, that's really good to see that we're having we don't have just it's EG secret and nobody else can be actually good. Nobody else wants to be fans. But my only gripe with it is I don't want to see like 100 copy pastas of this on Reddit in a few months.
Right.
Other than that, like, I love seeing fans like be this honest and nice. But it's like, you're right. It's just fans. Nobody can know, and we can all speculate, but it can be also very rude. Potentially rude. Sorry.
So right after they were eliminated from TI5, I did a statistical analysis piece that looked at the way that Navi's been playing and their steady decline, and looked at how that decline bubbles and troughs and what the causes seem to be. I actually, in the next week or so, I would expect Navi's performance to go up in the next week for about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. They have a tendency to do much better on new patches, but they do not innovate very much anymore. When you look at their drafting, when you look at their play styles, they typically either play the things that they are good at or they play the things other teams are good at. The only hero that they've really put into the meta and put their own stamp on is Soneko's Winter Wyvern in the last about 3 years. There might be one or two others, but really since they've TI3, I guess, they have not really put their stamp on the scene in the creative way that they were known for. So that stagnation, I think, is really hurting them. I think that it's great that Dendy is in a place that he's happy to continue to work and struggle and try to become better with people that he likes to work with, and that he's not abandoning ship. I think stability is really good for teams and players. I think they need some fresh blood and new ideas, and maybe PSM is that, and they have not gotten into it yet. I don't know. But it's nice to see fans writing out to the players. It's nice to see players responding. But I will echo what Skim and Conrad were saying, that we don't know what's happening with the team. We don't know what's happening in their practices or in their lives. And even when I do very rigorous statistical writing about how and why it appears things are happening, that does not necessarily pull out causality. It just pulls out the correlation between these types of events and this type of performance.
All right, we're gonna buzz that because A, we all agree, so I'm bored of the topic, and B, used words like causality and correlation in a sentence, and that's just too big for me. So we're gonna move on to the next one, and I'm actually gonna take a point away for trying to sound too smart. So there it goes. All right. Here, now this is going to be a multiple point topic, and we're going to talk about the compendium that just came out. There's a lot of things about this compendium that are sort of like, what's going on? Let's figure this out. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is we all said when they announced that the major was going to be $3 million that there was no mention of crowdfunding. There still hasn't been any mention of crowdfunding, but the compendium still comes out without any actual cash from it going into the prize pool. Do you think that this makes Valve look greedy, like they're in it for a money grab, or do you think that the compendium without crowdfunding is a good thing?
Bro, okay, first $3 million.
You don't know that no money
come on.
compendium is going in. It's just not scaling. They're not telling you how much of it, but I guarantee you money from the compendiums at some stage will go into the production.
Right, like the $3 million they make off of the compendium they'll use to pay the prize pool.
No, a good way of putting it is 3 million greedy Bitcoin. Like they don't have any. Right. They don't have to do a major, right? They could probably just release items that say immortal on them with a compendium. You'd be like, sorry guys, major's canceled, and they're probably still gonna make fat stacks because we all love those items because we're greedy. We're greedy. Yeah. We're the greedy ones.
This kind of is always drowned when, like, because of the compendium hype and because of the prize pool hype, and everybody's like, oh, Valve made 75 million. But how much of that actually goes towards, or like, even like, of course, the rest, how much of that goes to producing the tournament, hosting the tournament, like inviting everybody in? I mean, Conrad can confirm that, but they spend a shit ton of money on like making sure that everybody feels like they're in heaven. Like the way Valve treats players and even managers, like they invite managers, like every team was allowed one manager and then 2 coaches or something like that.
No, so every team was allowed 8 spots, 5 players, and then 3, like, you can pick anybody you want. Some people had girlfriends, some people had managers, some people had coaches, across the board. Like, you can pick anybody. Media
people who are fans of Dota also don't really recognize that this is literally, esports are an entire economy among themselves. It is not like there are players and there are coaches and there are owners and there's Valve and that's it. There are artists that have to be paid for the dozen or so sets, and these are people who make a living just doing art for esports in theory. Several of them are, many more of them want to be. There are obviously event costs that are not part of the $3 million prize pool. There is a ton of planning and preparation. There are the costs of travel. There are the costs of doing all the production side of everything, paying all of the talent, including your Toby Wands and everybody, to go out to that area of Frankfurt and be able to do that. So it's not like they're just putting $3 million from TI that they had set aside and, oh, that's the cost. There are a lot of other aspects that you don't think of. And so maybe they're going to make more than they would if they did a 25% into the prize pool. Maybe they won't. I don't know because I don't have access to their books. But the idea that they're greedy because they're not sharing that information is kind of ridiculous.
At the same time,
No, I was just going to say, I think 3 million is a very fair number to everybody. It's a huge investment from Valve. No matter which way you cut 3 million, it's still $3 million.
That's true.
And there's no tournament that's going to be able to match that, regardless. And it's a good amount, and it gives a lot of players a decent amount of money to work with. They're going to do 3 more of these hopefully. And if all of them are 3 million, that's great. I think 3 million is a great place to start. If it ends up being more eventually, fantastic. But I think this is a really safe place. And now they got the coin betting and all this other stuff. They've brought a lot more value, I think, to this compendium, actually, in that sense.
Okay, so let's talk compendium values, and let's.
I think Skim had something to say.
I just wanted to say that it is, in my opinion, also good that they just keep it down, because otherwise we'd have all these kind of like tournaments competing with one another in terms of prize pool. Oh, this major had like this amount of money, right? I think it's just good from Valve's side just to keep the hype sort of down, because like the past 6 months, it's always been about the 18 million. Can we top that? Or like even DC 3.2 million for a tournament that's not TI. Wow, can we top that? I think it's just good for Valve to keep the hype down and just. I mean, they haven't announced it yet, but I would also be very glad if they just decided, hey, every major 3 million, that's good.
That's fair.
Can you imagine the controversy that would happen if there were 25% prize pool sharing from the compendium this fall, and then there were the same for the winter, and the winter were $2 million fewer than the fall?
Right.
They just sold fewer compendiums. It's really a good idea to keep that. If they're supposed to be puzzle pieces in the year, then it makes sense to have the big prize pool at the end of the year and the rest of the prize pool standardized.
Sounds fair. Okay. All right. So let's move to the next question about the compendium, which is the compendium is now released. There's no crowdfunding, so it's not necessary. You don't have to necessarily say that it had to be rushed out to try and fund the tournament. And stuff from the last compendium still hasn't been put into the game. Now, is that something that, should we be fixing things like bugs in the game and things that are owed to fans who have essentially paid for them before this new compendium and these new chests are released?
I mean, is it truly owed?
I mean,
you chose to pay for them.
Well, they said if you spend this much and get the compendium this high, we will give you an Axe Immortal.
You said bugs.
Well, okay, so let's go both sides. Let's say for paid things, Axe Immortal, Desert Terrain.
I will go with, I'm not a comic book artist, but I know it takes a long time to make a comic book.
That's fair.
So I'm going to appreciate the effort that they're going to put in, and I hope they release the Immortal at the same time. Like, I'm pretty sure, hopefully the item's made already, and they just have to attach the comic book. But apparently, this is going to be the longest one yet. They're putting a lot more detail into it. I'm very excited. I don't think, not having a piece from the old one, think about how long ago that was. TI wasn't that long ago.
It was a couple weeks, yeah.
True.
And so it's like, it just feels, I can wait for these other things. Like, I've gotten a lot out of my already, TI compendium.
Mm-hmm.
I can wait a little bit more for higher quality content. I'm willing to wait longer for better stuff.
The idea that Valve is putting aside one thing to work on another instead completely overlooks the fact that different people have different jobs at Valve. The guy who is working on the terrain is probably not the dude who's in charge of compendiums, right? That guy is going to be a programmer and a graphic designer and all of these other aspects, whereas the compendium guy is going to be working with the software and with the user base and all of that aspect. It's not like they're likely, I don't know because I don't work at Valve, I suspect they are not heavily diverting their manpower from one side to another with all of these multi-talented people who work in every aspect of the game. People are specialized.
Unless everybody in Valve is just gods, because I can believe that too.
Okay, I just want to point something out, and I think all of you know Sir Belvedere, right? The guy that does all the patch notes, or patch analysis for Reddit. And he actually said that, and I'm quoting him here, that most of it is actually already ready. Actually, I'm not quoting him right here, but he said that basically what's missing is, right, the Axe Immortal, the comic, and the Desert Terrain, right?
Yep.
And apparently, and I actually didn't pay much attention to it, but apparently if you look at the Axe Immortal or comic back then when they teased it or whatever, that it was kind of linked to the Desert Terrain as well. And since the Desert Terrain is still not, there's technical issues with the Desert Terrain and Reborn, so that's why they haven't released it yet. And that's why they're still waiting on the Immortal and comic as well, apparently. So I think it's fairly reasonable to not release that kind of stuff unless you're 100% sure that it's going to work. And as for the Arcana that a lot of people are also demanding, guys, it was just an Arcana. It was also just an Arcana vote, right?
It wasn't any.
They never said that by paying for the companion we get an Arcana. We'd only be able to vote for the next Arcana to be made, which would be Zeus.
And it can't be created until obviously the vote ends. So there's even a different time frame. That makes sense. I like that. We'll give you extra points for that. Now let's talk about the other side of the coin, which is technical bugs, and that's what everybody's arguing, is saying, why are we worried about programming a compendium and all the stuff that goes along with it, and adding coin betting and all these cool features when the game is still broken?
Now, to speak to bugs, it's not let me just go to this back room and fix this thing, and then, suddenly it all works now, everything's great. I mean, bugs affect other things. Like, say they know how to fix this bug, but it it just crashes your game every 5 minutes. Obviously, you can't ship that.
Which they literally fixed the bug, and then it crashed games every 5 minutes. That literally happened 2 weeks ago.
And so it's programming is difficult. I don't claim to know how to do any of it, but it's damn hard. And I trust that they're I don't think anybody's sitting back being yes, I will leave that in there for now, and then I'll get back to it 2 years.
You will not hear casters in the replays.
Exactly. I don't think anybody's not trying to solve it. It's just some things can't be solved as easily as us going just fix it.
Wait, do any of you guys remember the bug that was actually like existent? I'm not even sure what it was about, but it existed in Dota for a long time, and the only reason they found out about it or how to fix it was because it happened to Loda in a competitive match. It actually happened even twice. There's like two bugs that Loda found in official matches. That's like a running gag at this point as well, or a meme.
Do you know what hero was?
He was like, I think CK or something. I don't know.
I know there was one bug.
It was probably a hero nobody else plays.
There was one bug that Loda found with the blink dagger. Where
exactly.
He tried to blink from the wrong number of radians around his
exactly,
and then ended up taking an extra 20.25 seconds.
That bug existed for like 2 years or whatnot, and they couldn't reproduce it. They knew that it was going to happen, but they didn't know what caused it and when it was going to happen, right? Until Loda casually just did it in a
match.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then the centaur thing with a tombstone.
I mean,
somebody
I
pointed
think
out.
like the Wisp Blink Dagger, like somebody discovers that it's like LOL tethers forever now.
Yeah, exactly that as well. Like these kind of things, it's not like Valve is not aware of these things. It's just that being able to figure out how a bug is going to be fixed is really difficult because you need to be able to reproduce it, right? And a lot of Reddit threads are just like, "Oh, this bug happens." They can't. Right. They're not even telling when it happened, how it happened. It's just like, "Oh yeah, there's a bug here."
Yeah, I think that's one thing I saw in the Reborn client. They had the bug thing in the corner. It's actually really good. Like a big problem I think in like CS:GO and most Valve games is that nobody actually reports the bugs that they see. There's a really like nice, clear system that's like, "Yo, fill this out. Tell us how the bug happened." And just like nobody actually ever talks about how to solve a bug. We
just go to Reddit instead.
Nobody actually posts about it.
When they transitioned over to Reborn, I was one of the most vocal critics that they did it too early. I stand by the fact that they did it too early. There were too many bugs. They were not prepared. There were too many oversights. It hurt teams. It hurt players, casual players, and pro players. At this point in time, the number of bugs that are still hanging around, they've kind of gotten over that hump, I think. That they've gotten it to the point that if you're complaining about the number of bugs that are still around, you won't be complaining much longer. They seem to be clearing them up at a very rapid pace. And the idea that the compendium dude should be out back fixing bugs with a wrench instead of working on the compendium, which is part of his job, that seems ridiculous.
I will say though that and somebody in the chat brought it up as well. Thank you, forehead 1913.
The guy who hates everything about Gorgon.
Yeah. He hates me as well. Like,
Thank you, forehead.
So he did say that there's definitely bugs concerning cosmetics, right? There's a lot of bugs concerning cosmetics, yet people are releasing, like Valve is releasing cosmetics. Now, I'm not sure if the same guy can produce cosmetics and work on bugs regarding cosmetics. I just have to assume that it works like that. I don't know. So that is, I guess, a valid concern. But other than that, I do think that a lot of the complaints on Reddit or just in general from the community are a bit.
Big disclaimer here: I don't make kits or whatever for Dota, but I suspect a lot of those bugs come out of the fact that those are not being made by people at Valve. They're being made in the public by third parties. And
well, the biggest thing
into the game, right?
Yeah, it's just being ported in, and I don't think a lot of people were ready for Source 2 right away. You know, like that's just the problem with going to Reborn. And here's the thing, though: what if they just put Reborn and they called it beta for like 2 years, like they did with Dota? Problem solved. It's in beta, guys. Sorry, not our bad.
That was my big problem. They forced players and pros to go back to beta after they had an established product. That was my problem. That was word for word. They force people to go into a beta even if they didn't want to.
No, I totally agree.
I disagree with that from a business standpoint.
The thing is, though, they had Dota Reborn like side by side for a long time, but for like half a year or something, right?
It was for like 2.5 months or something.
It wasn't that long. Yeah, it was definitely shorter than that.
But that's still like they still weren't able to, or rather, it's not like a lot of people played Reborn. How much did you guys play Reborn?
Not at all.
To get like 5 games from my compendium.
Like after you tested out like every custom game, how much do you actually play Reborn?
I literally didn't boot it up once, and I know there were a lot of players that didn't. So I suspect the reason they forced the change is to get a bigger user base.
Yeah,
but there are other ways to get in a bigger user base. You can offer free items or something, like Conrad said. He went in for his compendium thing.
Yep.
There are other ways of
forcing
people to go in and play a beta when they are used to an established type of game.
I mean, the biggest thing I think that drew people to Reborn is custom games, and I think the reason why Reborn was released was to get on that custom games like bandwagon right now, because StarCraft's starting to redo their arcade. Like everybody's trying to get on this custom game hype, and the thing is, nobody else is going to do it probably better than either Blizzard or Valve. So if you like, I mean, have you seen that World of Warships game or whatever it's called? Naval Warfare. That thing is like legit made by like a professional studio. Like that game is ridiculously good. Apparently, one of the Chinese owners loved this game so much in Warcraft 3, he hired a studio to remake it.
Wow.
So like,
I'll have to go try it now.
Yeah, and apparently the quality is just like really good, and I haven't had a chance to play it, but it sounds great. Like I'm down for these. I'm down for Reborn, not just being a Dota game, but also all these cool custom games. I played some really fun custom games.
All right, that's all the time we have for that topic, and we are all so close in score that what we're going to do is have a lightning round. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock for this topic, and it is one that I think you guys will probably have some opinions on, and if you don't deserve to be in the final. And that is the idea that Vega won ESL. I think it was an upset for a lot of folks. A lot of the analysts on the panel there, myself included, like last week I said there's no way they're a top 3 team. The people on the panel thought they'd lose the first round. The Vega Acolyte said we knew this was coming all along. Do you think, A, what was Vega's secret to success, if you have an opinion on that? And B, does this speak to the need for more wildcard spots, maybe less direct invites, more open qualifiers for major events? Because keep in mind, Vega was a team that was this close to TI. And
okay, can I soapbox in this lightning round? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Hit your soapbox. You got 1 minute on the clock.
How about everybody soapbox?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's do that. Let's do this. I like that idea.
A round of soapboxes on
Round
Vega?
of soapboxes. 1 minute on the clock. We'll start with Gorgon. Everybody else has to just listen. Gorgon, you've got 1 minute to talk about Vega. Go.
Okay, Vega has been steadily improving and hitting every single statistically predicted mark for about 8-9 months now. They were expected to get exactly second in their qualifiers. They were expected to come in the exact place that they were going to come in the wild card. They came out of TI even stronger than they were. People who thought that they were not a top of your Europe team moving into this event have not been paying attention to them. They have over a 60% win rate before this event, now at about 64% against largely good teams, at least decent teams, some of the best teams in the region. They are a very strong team, and then once the new patch hit, they experimented the exact proper amount. They continued to play, and they won every single game or every single match that they played on that patch until they lost to 5 Youngs in that best of 5, where they actually lost largely due to what was clearly a misclick from Solo, right? A misclick followed up by a little bit of bad team coordination. So the idea that they didn't come into this tournament strong is, I think, misimportant.
All right, that's your time. Let's move on to our next one. We will go to Skim because he's next on my rotation here. Skim, you have 1 minute on the clock. Let's hear what you've got to say.
Okay, I have followed Vega throughout the last 2 weeks or something like as well, and I wouldn't say that you could expect them to actually win the tournament. I definitely think that they were a strong team going into this tournament, but never would I have imagined that they're a top-tier team or like top 2, top 3, just because I have seen them struggle as well. They haven't really convinced me at all during those performances. I will say, though, that just because they're this strong right now, it does, and even during the wildcard qualifiers as well, where they were one of the only teams that actually sort of like feared out CDEC and denying them the dire advantage. It speaks to them, or it is a good example that we need more spots for TI. That a winner of a qualifier in Europe, for example, shouldn't automatically be seeded into TI, but instead maybe being seeded into a higher stage in a qualifier or a wildcard play at the event. I've always advocated that we need more qualifiers playoffs, especially for TI. For this ESL, I think it's completely fine to have this amount of qualifiers. Now, to Vega, I think they're a strong team, but at the same time, they had the advantage of having a lot of practice with this patch, but as a team together as well. They've been playing for half a year already together, and they have played this patch more than any other team together.
Good points. I liked it. I think that was pretty good. Towards the end, he got really fast. It was impressive how much he got slammed into that last 15 seconds. All right, last man on the clock. This is Conrad. Let's get you your minute, and it starts right now.
So I'm probably one of the most useless ones to talk about this because I'm not exactly the most technical of people, but I honestly do, like, for me, Vega's a strong team. They've always been strong. They did well against CDEC. They're one of the few teams that actually even took a game off CDEC at TI, if you even remember. Like, Vega, like, I spoke to their manager a lot. We ended up screaming them a lot during TI, and they're they're good. They're like if you've been watching the games in Europe, like they're good. They've gotten to the finals of at least 2 qualifiers. The only teams that they've lost to in the qualifiers have been teams that won the qualifiers. So it's like they're a really solid squad. I think you're like Ryan hit all the right points of like, hey, they did a lot of practice, and I think this new patch is actually like they've really advanced it. And Mag, like, I think as an offlaner, the biggest thing right now I think in teams is that offlaners like need to learn how to play, and the teams with good offlaners are actually going to do really well in the near future. Obviously you need the whole team, but like offlaners are actually like really underrated role right now. That's all I really got, because I don't have stats, I don't have things. I just watched a lot of games and they've been doing really well. That's all I can say.
All right, that's time. Let's go to the scoreboard and see what we're looking at. First up, we've got Mr. Skim is sitting at 24 points at the end of this game. We've got Conrad, who unfortunately got screwed by the bonus round because he knew nothing about technical stats or expected performances, sitting at 23. And last but not least, we've got 23 on Gorgon the Wonder Cow. So our big winner tonight, surprising after the debacle or the smashing that he took the last time he was on the show, Skim Gaming gets the Aegis. Congratulations, much fanfare from the people. Skim, you have earned yourself a soapbox to talk about anything you want. If you don't want it, feel free to pass it off.
Taking my minute after.
No. I'm gonna give it to you though, but I just do want to say one thing. I only won because LD isn't here. It's really difficult to argue when LD is in the.
It's really hard to beat LD.
No, you be louder than him. Oh wait.
Can't do that.
No, because Gerg can't beat LD either, so clearly that doesn't work. All right. That said, did you say you wanted to yield it to Conrad? Is that okay?
I want to listen about the whole suits thing.
All right. So Conrad has been yielded his 1 minute soapbox by Skim. So everybody else will go ahead and get quiet as we provide 1 minute to soapbox about whatever he wants. Go ahead, Conrad. Your time starts now.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about fashion within esports, specifically within casters and people who dress a lot. If you're sitting down and your button is buttoned on your suit, you're actually just wrong. Like, that's actually just completely wrong. That's not how that thing is supposed to fit on your body. Like, I'm not an ugh. Let's just get on with that. And then having your ties, like, halfway, like, undone here. I wish I was wearing a suit so I could just describe this. But, like, just do this once in a while, just tie it, like get it around the neck. You're good to go, like no problem. Like there's so many times I'm just like, why? Also, I'd like to see some advancement in the stylings of Dota casters in general. A lot of you wear ties, yes, but I feel like we're lacking a little bit more in the skinny tie sort of selection. I think there is a certain look that needs to be done. I mean, I'll put it this way: at least Nahaz had the biggest tie at ESL, so kind of like the age works. If I had to go with best dressed, maybe I should make this a video series. If I had to go with best dressed at TI, or sorry, not at TI, at ESL, it was definitely Merlani. Looked really good in his full suit. I can't. It blows my mind how, maybe because I had to wear a lot of formal stuff when I was doing choir, but everybody get better at wearing stuff.
Soapbox is over.
A fashion expert.
You know what? If you had demanded your soapbox and gone on this earlier in the game, you would have been the winner because I agree with many things that were said there. As somebody who's been wearing a suit on the show for what now, a year, and have wore a suit for a living for a long time, I couldn't agree more. I don't think your skinny ties point is valid, but we can't all look good in skinny ties. I'm just saying.
No, that's okay too, though. But I still think thinner ties is definitely the way things should be going, because it's like the old school thick tie. Like I used to even wear those when I was younger, and those aren't.
It's weird that events they could hire somebody to oversee that sort of stuff.
I don't know whether it's a sponsor
out there.
Yes, and
a wardrobe manager.
Typically, you have somebody who's wardrobe managers. Yeah, maybe. I mean, typically you have a makeup person, but if anything, you should be self-checking each other.
Guys, the banter may continue, so stick around and don't go anywhere. We'll talk after the screen cuts out, but that is literally all the time we have for the show tonight. I appreciate you stopping by. A big thank you to Razor for the gear, and a shout out to our guests and where you can find them. Guest number 1, remember, Sylvan Kim, you can find him at Skim Gaming. Conrad Jansen, you can find him at QuantumPope. And Ryan Gerardo, you can find him at The Wonder Cow. Everyone's got their own projects going on, so make sure you check it out because I know a couple of announcements are on the way. My name is Steve Pierce. You can find me at Toffees_Dota2. If you want to sponsor the show, you can send me an email straight from Twitch here, or you can go to patreon.com/Toffees and help keep it running. That said, guys, thanks for spending a wonderful evening with us. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And as always, Toffees out. All right, now what were we talking about? Because that got a little...